So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. It's a beautiful day in the East Kootenays today. Smoke is cleared, and we got some beautiful blue skies out there. This morning, I have a guest that is coming out of Ontario. He's been well known in the community for many years. I'd like to welcome Paul Hartman. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm great, Tamara. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure to meet some new people that I haven't had on my show before. And I've never met you or actually didn't have much knowledge of you until recently. So I'm really pleased to have you on. So normally I ask my guests the who, what, where. So I'm going to ask you, who are you and why did you get involved in cannabis?
Well, I'm Paul Hartman. I was born in Brantford in 1953. My family moved to the United States when I was 5. I pretty much grew up in California with my 8 siblings, 5 sisters, 2 brothers. And my middle brother was Phil Hartman, the comedian from SNL, The Simpsons, News Radio, Jingle All the Way, all kinds of movies, Greedy.
Wow.
And I grew up in the music business in California, as my oldest brother, John Hartman, is a legend in the music business. He started out in the mailroom at William Morris with David Geffen, and the first artist he signed was Sonny and Cher and the Buffalo Springfield, and then Crosby, Stills and Nash, and on and on and on. He put the Eagles together. He's on the Desperado cover. If you open it up, he's the sheriff in the black hat. And in California, you grow up in the 60s smoking a lot of cannabis and being a person who admired everything my older brothers did. I had to understand more about cannabis than they did, and I kind of became a fanatic at a very young age. I did my first smuggle when I was 19.
Wow.
I backpacked 100 miles with 100 pounds, 8 miles into Arizona. I did that 2 nights in a row. And then I got the bug and I went to Mexico, and I read all the Carlos Castaneda books and the teachings of Don Juan and all that stuff. And I had to go to see all those places. And then I ended up living in Mexico for a good 6 years and growing and exporting and doing stuff like that. And then started into the growing in California in the very early years in the late 70s. And,
so you've done a lot of things. You've been busy.
Yeah. I don't stand around.
No, that's also fascinating. Like even just being the difference between California and Canada, like must have been quite a shock, or I guess a culture shock. Did you find much difference between the two?
Yeah, there's a huge difference. I mean, you live in an American culture and you're raised by Canadians. You are fundamentally different than Americans. And I always wondered why I was, right? Because I wasn't racially different than the mass, but there were subtle differences. And I think a lot of it is the level of respect that we're brought up with here, and the sense of humanity and things of that nature really set us apart. And not until I returned to Canada in 2005, after doing 3 years in prison for cultivation of mushrooms, I came back pretty shell-shocked with post-traumatic stress disorder from being in prison, and it was incredible to get deported and land in BC.
I bet. So you did time in an American prison then, correct?
I did. I did.
Right.
I was sentenced to 6 years, and I did 3. And
Wow.
it was.
That must have been horrible.
It was horrible, but
any prison is horrible.
yeah, I lucked out too. I went to the because of my age, I turned 50 in prison, so. And I'd never been to prison or jail before, and they have a tendency to try to make it easier on the older people coming in. So at one point I was given an option of which 2 prisons I wanted to go to, and everybody told me if they gave me this option to go to a place called Tehachapi, that's where I wanted to go. So that was where I ended up, and it was up in the mountains north of Los Angeles, and it snowed there. And the yard that I did most of my time on was what they call a secure level 1. So it had to have gun towers and wire and stuff like that. But it had it was a prison that was built in 1932 and had been a women's prison. And it was all Moorish architecture and had trees, and there were 300 cats on the yard, and people had pets and stuff. I mean, it was really different, and it was where they had people who had done a lot of time and were getting ready to get back out into society. They were on that yard making that transition out. And then we had all the mentally ill people on that yard too. So kept it interesting.
I bet. Well, it's unfortunate.
So we had a track and a tennis court.
Like I said, it's unfortunate you had to spend any time, because even for mushrooms, I mean, it still comes from the earth, right? So I have a hard time seeing people go to jail for any narcotics. I just think it's just kind of ridiculous. Even like cocaine on a certain level is medicinal. I mean, and everything in moderation, right? Like, I'm not promoting, drug use by any stretch, but over the time, things have changed. And I think that, even in the States, with them putting people in jail for cannabis is ridiculous. But I don't know how close we're getting there. Even with the new regulations for Canadians, it's not looking like they're going to just take jail off the table. That's unfortunate.
No, it's not legalization in any sense of the word, and the shaming still continues. I think that it's sad to even use the word legalization in conjunction with what they're doing, because it is no semblance of that whatsoever. The option of sending people to jail for cannabis anymore is obscene. It's got to stop. There's no place for it anymore. In view of all the science and all the good things and all the beneficial things, they keep doubling down on the old concept.
Right. Well, I made a point this morning saying it's non-comparable to alcohol, because in society, people that consume alcohol every day are classified as alcoholics. And anybody that consumes cannabis every day then is considered an addict. And I don't find that comparable, because many people use it for medicinal purposes. I know myself personally, I have to consume every day or I'd be sick. And it's not because I'm addicted to cannabis, it's because I have colitis. And that keeps my colitis in remission, and so that I can actually function. And I think people, like, I mean, we don't want to shove the RX label at everybody either, because there's use for it in many different forms. But comparing it to alcohol, I find repulsive. It's just not the same. It's not comparable. It's not the same impairment. Same with the driving. It's not the same. It's not the same impairment. And they're not looking at the impairment. They're looking at the substance. And I don't agree with that.
Well, I gotta agree with you. The concept of impairment with cannabis is really hard to digest for anybody who's been a lifetime user of it. I mean, I've been driving on cannabis since the beginning of whenever I started driving when I was 16.
Right.
And I've had 2 accidents in my whole life, and neither of them were my fault. And never was I ever given a sobriety test of any kind to question my ability about driving. So, and I think the misnomers and misconceptions about what the cannabis experience is. We're forced into using words that label it. You're either high or you're stoned or these words, but what those words mean aren't the true experience of what cannabis is. Because, in the old days, in the 60s, when we started consuming it, it was to heighten our awareness. And
absolutely,
when you read about what THC and cannabinoids do in your body, you realize that that's part and parcel of what they do to you mentally, is that they change your focus and allow you to get a broader spectrum vision about whatever it is you're observing in life, whether it's listening to music, watching a film, reading a book, working in the garden, walking the dog, communicating with your child, or observing the national news. You have a heightened sense of awareness and an ability to transcend the BS that is being fed you.
That's right. I think that's what they're scared of, that we're seeing through their BS, over the years.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what their gripe about psychedelics is. Cannabis makes you uncontrollable, right? Like you don't roll over to things that you would if you were an alcoholic. No. Alcohol is about deadening your pain and not having to functionally communicate with the outside world. When Phil gave me my first joint, and when he gave it to me, he said, "Paul, alcohol is for people who don't care and don't care to think. Cannabis is for people who care and care to think." And it became the tool of the thinking man. And if you go back through history and you look at who the people were who used it, people like William Shakespeare, you find and discover these things and you go, wow, these were the great thinkers of that time. And again, we have people like Terence McKenna and that fulfill those qualities in our time. It's the same thing. I mean, the therapeutic value of what cannabis does for people is already being proven that, because of our genetic makeup, we evolved alongside this plant. And if we weren't consuming it as food, the animals we ate were, and that fed our endocannabinoid system and gave us balance. We now suffer from cannabinoid deficiencies.
Right. We absolutely do.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because for years, before they, prohibited it, it was medicine then. A lot of things were used therapeutically before, I don't know, a dollar sign was put on most of it, I think, and fear mongering. I mean, I've got a friend that uses the word tyranny often when it comes to cannabis prohibition, tyranny on all levels. Like, it's racist. It's just on all levels wrong. And we have been discriminated against for so many years that some people just don't even know the difference anymore.
Well, and a great deal of people just don't care. The level of apathy that the living experience that is creating in North America right now is so oppressive mentally that people want to just become a junkie and I was reading an article the other day about how mother's milk has cannabinoids in it that are there to help calm the child, right? And, people don't get that concept that these things are, our bodies are sophisticated chemical factories. They need certain chemicals to function. It's like the quality of the food you put in are the quality of the chemicals that your body uses to do all the things that it needs to do, make subtle hormone reactions and all these things. And the cannabinoids that exist in plants, our body needs, wants, and evolved alongside of. And try to regulate and criminalize chemicals that are in our bodies, including things like DMT, and is just an infringement of our human rights.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that, like you said, most people don't care about. And I think that's the apathy that I find in everybody. Like, you talk to some people and they're just like, I don't even want to hear about it anymore because they just don't care. And I try and get that across to people that, in our community, we're very in tune to what's going on. Lots of us watch the news 24 hours a day. We're all in tune to what's going on. Like you said, the cannabis has made us more aware. And then all of a sudden you go and try and get out there and people just don't care. They don't want to hear it. And that's, I think, where you're right. The apathy is growing so much in certain areas of our country that, I don't know, like I'm living in a pretty conservative area here. And it's been a hard go. I mean, I was in Lethbridge prior. It was a hard go. So depending on what part of the country you're in, was whether it is or not. Like Ontario, because of your election, you guys are going to have a little more laid back regulation, I guess, for cannabis than what BC is even looking at right now. So, and we've been, forefronted in the cannabis industry from the very beginning out here in British Columbia, and now we're being stifled, like completely stifled. I know that there's a trial going on, or a pre-trial going on, or almost like a what the heck do you call it? I should have looked it up again this morning to refresh my memory. Sorry, but it's Rob Laurie and John Conroy and a few others that are doing a test. I guess it's test trialing for the dispensaries out there because of the few that were left behind. And I guess they made some progress yesterday, but it's not anything that's going to be precedent setting for anything. So that would be great if they could get some, things move forward out here for these dispensaries that are being shut down.
Yeah, it's sad to, and I hate even saying this because I feel for the people that have made the effort to open dispensaries in the sense that they, under the current law, and once it's implemented, they won't ever be able to have a license to have a dispensary because they operated illegally, and so it. And California made an effort to include everybody, and it wasn't that way in the beginning. I got my first medicinal cannabis license there in '98, and it was a mess. Every county was different, and in Humboldt you could have 95 plants per person per household. And in Riverside County, you could have 6, and so it varied everywhere you went. And then the national federal level to get you in trouble was if you had over 100 plants, then it was a federal case. And so, you tempered how much you push the envelope on the law there, depending on the county that you lived in. Based on the potential ramifications of what would happen if it all went awry. And right. Now it's straightened out considerably, and the playing field is not fair at all. It's geared toward the people who have the money to make it happen. And originally, before the recreational legalization, it had been under the a collective system, which was not for profit. So people opened up medicinal collectives and opened dispensaries under them. You had to be the grower and the producer and then have the store. So then they did away with that and rolled it back to where, wow, if you're going to be a producer of recreational and medicinal, you can only have one collective, and you can only have so many dispensaries in that collective, and stuff like that. So it's all, we're going to be in courts for 2 decades, and it's, it's pretty apparent that Trudeau's going to be a one-termer, and God help us if another conservative gets in there, because we'll be completely screwed then.
Right. Absolutely. And on that note, we're just going to take a quick break here, and we'll come back and talk about what we feel is going to happen in the next election, because you're right on that. If we get another conservative elected into power, we are screwed. So on that note, I will thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, the Haley Rose Foundation, and our Speed Bronx Free Child. We'll be right back.
The 5th Annual Karma Cup Cannabis Festival and Industry Trade Show is an elite medical cannabis, hash, edibles, topical, and heady glass competition. It also includes live music, speakers, glass marketplace, vendor village, exhibitors, and much more. Hand-picked judges evaluate many categories including bud, extract, CBD products, and disposable vape pens. This outdoor, rain or shine event will be held in downtown Toronto on September the 8th and 9th, but its secret location won't be released until September the 7th at 4:20 p.m. via social media. The Karma Cup was founded in 2013 by Sarah Sunday in order to create a cannabis-positive space for growers, producers, business owners, industry experts, and their fans in order to gather and judge the country's best cannabis and cannabis products on an even playing field. Please join us, be part of Canada's largest ticketed Cannabis Pride Festival, the 5th Annual Karma Cup Cannabis Festival and Industry Trade Show on September the 8th and 9th in downtown Toronto. For more information, please go to thekarmacup.com.
Hey, this is Cheech.
And this is Chong.
And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
What is it?
Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time.
420 radio?
Ooh.
Please hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Who decided this life?
All right, we're back with Phil Hartman. We've been having quite a great conversation about all the things that he's done in the past and things that the future has to hold, and talking about, before the break, a little bit about how, if we get a conservative government back in power this next election, might not be so great for cannabis. I don't think it's going to be great for abortion laws, and I think there's a lot of things that won't be great about it. But, hindsight, this is what we have to look forward to. So moving forward, you're in Owen Sound, Ontario, right, Paul?
That is correct.
So do you have dispensaries in your little town, or is it, what's it, like I said, I've been to Peterborough. I'm not really sure how big the difference is between those two, but do you have a lot of access? Is there patients and a community going on in your town?
There is community here, but it's old school community. It's we don't have a dispensary. We have a lot of sympathetic people here to the cause, and a lot of people who consume cannabis. But most everybody here, gets it where they've been getting it for decades, and a lot of people grow their own. And that's one of the reasons to live up here. It's a beautiful spot to do that kind of thing. And you have incredible access to the outdoors and nature around us. So it's different in that sense. It would be a great place to have a dispensary because there are so many people here that consume it. And I'm talking about very civic-minded, prominent people in the community.
Right.
It's still in the closet here. I don't expect that to change because nobody's buying what the government is selling. They see it for what it is, and they see that there's more laws now than there will be previously to October 17th. So, and one of the things I tell people is get your medical. It's your only real protection. Grow your own, or assign it to somebody to grow it for you. Get all the protection you can get. And because we know that medical patients are going to get treated differently eventually. There's already been laws passed in the states that say that medical patients are not intoxicated. I mean, after my first 3 weeks of doing a gram a day of cannabis oil for my prostate cancer, I couldn't get high on anything.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I understand that. I don't know what people get. Like, that's the thing. There's a difference in conception of high. Like when I take Percocet, that makes me high. When I smoke cannabis, it just makes me feel better. I don't know how other way to describe it. It's a different form of high, I guess. But it's the same when you drink alcohol, comparably to cannabis. And I think that what the average person needs to do is actually consume it before they're going to understand it. And I know that's not going to happen on a lot of cases, a lot of levels. Like, you're not going to see the police force all sitting down and putting them all in a room and say, here, buddy, light up, so that they get the understanding. But they do with alcohol. And that's one thing, people are more socially acceptable to these things. And I'm wondering when that's going to come around, that people will want to try it just to see that it's not the same.
I think, one of the things that is really interesting, I watched an Anthony Bourdain episode where he goes to Uruguay. And you look at how it's treated there, because in one scene, he's sitting with some chefs and musicians on the patio of a restaurant, and it's permitted to smoke in public. Anywhere where it isn't in a confined area that, nobody's going to be subjected to it.
I see that episode. I loved him.
Yeah, and you go, that's how it needs to be, and when you're in Northern California and places like that, nobody gives you any shit about sparking up a joint anywhere, No. And pretty much in Vancouver, when I first got there, I was such a mess. You come out of there and you're just so shell shocked. So I get to a bus stop at right there by the big geodesic dome by the water. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this 80-year-old lady roll a huge blunt at the bus stop, and she sparks it up right there. And I'm like having a nervous breakdown. You know, I'm like, where are the police? They're going to, you know, she's going to get beaten to death, you know. And then I ended up living in Gastown for a while. I had an apartment in the Hotel Europe, which is that Flatiron building right there in Gastown, at the intersection of Water and Powell and Alexander. And it was really interesting because I often had to walk through the worst part of the Hastings and Maine area to get to friends' places and things like that. And I remember one day getting to right in front of the Carnegie place there, and this First Nations guy is laying on the ground, and his girlfriend's got a syringe stuck in his neck. And I'm like just losing my shit. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this. And I'm standing there in shock. And then I see two cops on the beat coming. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be horrible. I'm just like, I'm running all these Los Angeles movies, you know?
Oh,
and they get up, and the first guy goes, hey, you know, that's probably not a good place to be sticking that needle, eh? And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like they're not macing them or clubbing them or, you know, and here's the different mindset that we have in Canada about these issues, you know, and that's a rough area, you know. Yeah. They pay people to roll around magnets that collect needle tips off the ground, and they pay them by the weight, you know, and it's extensive, you know, and you go, man, this is rough shit, you know, and if cannabis can be integrated into that program of helping them get off opioids and curb this epidemic that we're having here in Ontario, it's incredible. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how bad it is, you know.
Yeah,
and it's like
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's here too. Like, it's unfortunate. Like, we live in, like I said, the southeast corner of British Columbia. I'm about 3 hours from the Alberta border, and it's rampant. Like, even in this town, it's appalling to see these young people, and they're young people, all within the ages ranges of 19 to 35, and they're dropping dead of drug overdoses. And then, like I said, we've lost a couple here in this small town as well. We had a stabbing on the weekend that was drug, related too. Like, it wasn't, but it was. Drugs were being used at the time of the stabbing. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's unfortunate that this is where we are. And I have to give kudos out to the Vancouver base, because Vandu does allow cannabis substitution. Neil Magnuson and his crew to go in there once a week to do that. And that's awesome in Vancouver, but it needs to be done everywhere. And then I read into Lethbridge, where I did a lot of my work originally, and they've got arches there. And it's a safe injection site. And I guess it's just escalated. There's apparently people shooting needles in the streets now because they have better and more access to the needles, and it's not an exchange. It's just a hand, like, you can go get, say, like, clean needles and stuff, and they don't have anywhere for disposal. So they're having a real issue with that in Lethbridge. And, I see it via Facebook, and I talk to my mom, and it's getting to be a huge problem. And what I think is more appalling to me is, as this continues on, they're seeing what damage is that's being done, but they're not actually stopping it with cannabis substitution. And that's where they should be looking at it.
Well, I think it's a good step that the producers of these drugs are being sued, because how it's ending up on the street is criminal, right? And I'll give you an example. Across from my studio right here is a methadone clinic. And I watch the people that go in and out of there all day long. And Owen Sound is a place where they send people when they need to do a geographic relocation to help them, right? Yeah. And you see the people that are going into these methadone clinics, and they're not heroin users. These people got their addictions from their doctors. Yeah. And you go, okay, this has really got to stop, the senseless overprescribing of painkillers simply because somebody says they have pain, or if they actually do have pain, and those things do not end up working properly after a while, and then all the other side effects are horrifying to boot. one of the things that always fascinated me about Vancouver was that they have that ayahuasca therapy there.
Yes.
Which the results of and the lasting results of are amazing. And I attribute the use of psychedelics to me beating an addiction to cocaine. Working in the music business in Los Angeles in the 80s, they used to refer to that time period as the 2-decade winter. and it was an ongoing blizzard. It was so normal to use cocaine in LA during that time period that you'd go to a meeting at ICM or William Morris and the door would shut and everybody'd break out their rock star Coke and you'd do a snort and you'd have a meeting, you know? And then that turns into addiction. You know, the drug that wasn't supposed to be addictive was. I was horribly addicted to it. And it took everything, all the willpower I had and the encouragement of my wife at the time to help me get off it. But ultimately, it was psychedelics that closed the door on that phase of my life for me. You know, it gave me that reflection that I needed to look deep enough into myself to step away from it. Yeah. And then it was gone. It was broken. The addiction was absolutely fucking gone. I mean, and even you know, over the years, like every once in a while, somebody will like, here, you want a line? And, you know, you do a snort and you go, holy shit, now I know why I don't do that anymore.
Right, exactly.
It's proof that your addiction is broken when you can do that, you know?
Yeah, I've been there, done that too. I had a little stint with myself with cocaine, and it's the same over the years. You know, you kind of just reiterate that that's not how you want your life to be where you left it, right? So that's, congratulations to you too, because that's a hard one to kick. I've been there too. It is.
It's a very sneaky drug, that one. It gets you so unexpectedly, you know?
It should be called more, because you never know when there's going to be enough more of it. Right?
I mean, one of my jobs was babysitting David Crosby for a while.
Oh my, that would have been something.
And it was right during the freebasing period of his life, right? And nobody knew what that was. David was like the first person freebasing in LA, and you know, I'll never forget the day he walked into the office and. My brother had this huge office, and my office and Phil's was through a little passageway from his bathroom into the back of the office. And it was kind of John's secret route to me and Phil, right? And so I hear the sound of somebody going into John's bathroom, but you're hearing the sound of like Pyrex plates banging on a torch in a tote bag, right? And then the torch fires up in the bathroom, and we're like, what the fuck is that, right? And then you smell that smell, because he was making it with ether. And then he starts smoking in there, and nobody knew what the fuck was going on. You know, it was just like, and
that was the late 80s, mid 80s. I remember when that started too.
Man.
Just the worst shit ever.
Prison saved his life. You know, he smoked up a couple of cars and a house and almost lost his beautiful boat.
Stuff is horrible.
He came out of prison. His voice was so sweet and pure, and he was able to stay off it.
And that's awesome. And it's hard. Like I said, nothing's easy. Like when you're addicted to something, whether it's alcohol or any substance, it's not easy. Where you find with cannabis though, you can actually for me, I can go, you know, it's not like I have to get up in the morning and first thing I do is reach for a joint. I mean, I can function, you know, like I don't need it. It's like something that just makes me it's like my medicine. And that's, I think, like I said, we really, with these new regulations or over, you know, Prohibition 2.0, we really need to start alliterating that to everybody. The difference of impairment, we have to start educating people so that they know that this is not what what their grandma told them. You know what I mean? It's not more.
Well, I think a lot of that too is us changing the terminology we use about the experience. We're not stoned.
We're not high.
If anything, we're high. You know, because our level of experience is enhanced. So it's an enhanced experience, right? And that's one of the things I plan on talking about this at HempFest. I'm going to integrate some stuff about humor and consciousness into my talk there, and try to change our experience about what it means to have this experience with cannabis, and how.
We're going to stop you there, and we're going to take another quick little break, and we'll come back and talk about your speaking at HempFest and when that is, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you. So again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, MUM, Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, and the Haley Rose Foundation. We'll be right back after Ronald Reggae, Jamaican Rhapsody.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as a daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered, and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reef Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarijuana. Then tune in and catch Pottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show, featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Is this the real leaf? Is this the cannabis? Caught on the dry side, must escape from reality.
That was the first one.
Legalize, and I gonna plant my seeds. I'm just a homeboy. Weed is no luxury. To be here, to be there. Little high, very high. Everywhere the weed grows, not all really matters to me. To me. Ganja never killed a man. Put a blunt against his head, like the light, and now he's dead. Ganja, everybody, is a gift from God. So why go and throw it all away? Ganja is meant to make you fly. If I'm not back again this time tomorrow, pass it on, pass it on. Save me some for later. Too late, the time has come. Getting legal around the world and improving all the time. Goodbye prohibition, grass has got to grow. Gotta leave ignorance behind and spread the buzz. Ganja. We all wanna fly. This magical herb should be distributed to all. puff of a spliff. Kush, purple kush, will you make me want to go? Look at all the lights are very, very bright. Me, Michael Scovey, over if you go. I'm just a homeboy, nobody stones me. He's just a homeboy from a dry neighborhood, sparing his grass from his illegality. Easy plant, easy grow, will you let me grow? No, we will not let you grow. Let me grow. We will not let you grow. Let me grow. We will not let you grow. Let me grow. Let me grow. Let me grow. Since let me grow. Hills above, there's a devil on the side for me. Tell me its leaves make me high. So you think you can come here and outsmoke the eye? Oh, brethren, pass it on to me, brethren. Just gotta get high, just gotta get high right now. No law really matters. Anyone can smoke. No law really matters. No law really matters to the eye.
All right, we're back with Paul. We were talking a little bit before the break about some politics and how things are looking, and you're heading off to HempFest to do some talking about what you think is going to happen with legalization, or Prohibition 2.0, as we call it. And you are also having a giveaway with Tracy Lamore PR. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Tracy is a longtime friend, and I'm a client of hers. She is, my God, she's been there from the beginning of all my craziness here in Canada. She helped me get Dr. Sam Malachi to treat me for my prostate cancer, and I just love her. And she and Julia Rose got me booked at HempFest to speak, and I got to thank Beth there for being so accommodating to time slot change she did for us, and they gave me the absolutely two best slots to speak at the whole thing. So me and Alan Park as well from the Green Crush, who I'm kind of the unofficial co-host of the Green Crush. So it's exciting always to do stuff in conjunction with them. And this prize giveaway, holy smoke, the package is incredible. I hope they give away swag bags. There's some really cool stuff that you can win in conjunction with the 2 passes to go to the event. And
Where's the event being held? Where's the event being held? In Toronto?
It's in Toronto, and it's at the Exposition Place. Am I saying it correct? Because I'm not familiar with the venue all that well there. I guess it's they've never had an event like this there before. And it looks like they've got, 300 or 400 different vendors that are going to be there. So it should be pretty interesting. They've even given Green Crush and I a booth to split. And
that's terrific.
I'll be showing some of the things that I'm working on, like the Gro Lyt that we've developed over the last 7 years that is the only military spec Gro Lyt in the world. It's 100% waterproof. You can drop it in a fish tank and run it. And the LEDs in it are proprietary. We design our own LEDs from scratch, including the gases put into the LED that create the color balance. So this light has the most accurate McCree spectrum curve of any Gro Lyt made, and we've goosed it just enough in the orange and red spectrum to make blooming unbelievable. Dr. Sam Malachi got the first ones in Canada, and his test with them was phenomenal. And now we're bringing this company to Canada to take it internationally. And then the other company we're bringing is the King Clone brand of genetics from California. King Clone's model there primarily is they make clones and sell them. But they have developed a line of genetics with some of the great classics, and then a whole new line that they're about to come out with that includes a 34% THC variety and a couple of really high CBD strains. And you can see them at kingclonebrand.com, and that's clone with a K. And then the Gro Lyt is called Gro Lyt, GROLYT. And it's growlight.com. And you can...
And that's for people like me with no power. Like I got a 60 amp power. I bet you one of those would run smashing in my house because it's not going to pull the power.
Well, what's mind-boggling about it is my partner in California who has been working with me in conjunction with Vision Smith. Vision Smith makes lights for the cinema industry. And so that's why they're the only company that makes the Gro Lyt that makes their own LEDs. Everybody else uses off-the-rack LEDs, which are just junk.
That's great.
So what's great about this is our nearest competitor, which I guess would be Gavita or somebody like that, it takes 650 watts for them to do what we do in 150 watts.
That's terrific.
And our power efficiency factor is 0.98. The closest one to us is 0.90. So technically we're 10 times more efficient. And my partner, what he did, we had his own medical grow there at his new residence. And they don't allow you to use generators anymore in California. You have to have augmented solar use to compensate for the amount of lighting you're using. So he puts in all the solar he needs. He replaces 8 Gavitas with 28 of these lights. And his first bill is $4.75. His closing bill, they paid him $47.
Oh, well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And a 75% savings in cooling.
Oh, my. Yeah, that's a huge difference. I know. I think that's a lot of the problem too. With a lot of patients who are on disability just can't afford the Upogen power. They can't afford the lights. They can't afford to, put the effort in. And I think that's something that with the 4 plants is not enough for a patient anyways. But there are going to be people that haven't had access to a doctor's signature that are going to try and grow these 4 plants. And likely there are people that are using medicinally as well, right? So this is good news for a lot of people that are living on disability that haven't had that opportunity as well. It sounds affordable. Which is great.
And it's great that when King Clone gets here too, they have a whole line of certified organic fertilizers that go in conjunction with their whole thing. So you're start to finish, from the organic bag soil they have through all the organic other amendments you need to finish the process of using a genetically perfect plant right off the get-go. And so that's one of the things and what we found out too is that the LPs, one of their hardest things to do is refill after they've finished a round because none of them seem to have the capability to produce enough raw material in terms of clones to fill up. And a couple of them have already approached us to help them fill in the gap, which makes the whole model for us setting up here really great, really easy. Because we were only planning on the home growers and the medical users to do the numbers, and now it's changed the whole thing.
Well, that's excellent. Well, that means, that's good to, to hear in other aspects as a patient, knowing that we're getting other genetics that are not been tampered with. You know what I'm saying? Because, you keep wondering, with the rumors and stuff that you hear, at least if they have the ability to bring new clones in from, other places like yourself, that means it's new, clean genetics coming in, right? That's excellent news.
Yeah. It's
if there's any excellent news about a licensed producer, you know what I mean?
Well, we're gonna see the collapse here, just like they did in California and Oregon. It's when the international producers come on, like all the guys in Jamaica and Castle Black and those people, when they come online down there and they are getting 1,500,000 square feet of greenhouse in Leamington, we're going to see prices drastically drop all across Canada because it needs to. Nobody's going to switch from the black market to weed that's more expensive and not as good, and you can't see it. This is a tactile product. You look at it, you smell it, you squeeze the bud, and trying to change that dynamic is pretty rough, especially with a no return policy.
Right. Exactly. I don't like this stuff. It tastes like crap. Take it back, and they say no. Right? How is that going to work? Well, I mean, even in the black market, it's pretty hard to turn bad cannabis too, but there are people that will do that. I'm going to mention quickly too that in order to get in on this draw that you and Tracy are doing, you have to go to Lamare PR on Facebook, share and follow the instructions on her page, and that will enter you into the draw for that 2 tickets to the Hemp Fest in Toronto. So that's Lamare PR. So we'll just put that out there. So if everybody's listening, they want to try and get in on that, because I think I'm going to try and get in on that. That sounds like a heck of a deal. So what's your next move? That I guess you're going to speak at Hemp Fest, and then what's after that?
I'm just in the middle of doing all the financials to bring King Clone and Gro Lyt here to Canada and start I'm applying for a standard license to produce just, I don't want to produce a lot. I want to produce the quality I produced in California. And I'm strictly concerned with connoisseur level consumption of cannabis, and always have been. And I feel that's the best medicinal too. So anything you make from something that is just of superior quality, quality is down the line.
Well, the consumers are going to speak, and they can produce as much as they want, but if it's not quality, people aren't going to buy it. And the consumer, it'll be supply, it'll be demand. And what the consumer demands is what's going to have to, be coming out of all of these places. And if it's not, it's going to sit on the shelf. If you're, producing crappy beer and it's got a skunky taste, nobody buys it either. So, that's something that people like. I mean, some of us have been smoking cannabis for 30 plus years. We know what the black market has, been able to produce for 30 plus years. And then I go and get, something from a dispensary or somewhere else, and the quality's not there. And I hate to say that, but the quality out of the black market has not changed. It's gotten better and better and better and better every year. So they're going to have to compete with that as well. And not allowing some of these master growers that might have cultivation charges have licensing is going to make it, they're not going to change. And the black market's not going to go away.
No, it's not. And I think I like the plan that they think that allowing people to grow 4 plants at home is going to put the end to the black market. I don't think that's necessarily true. but it's their shot at it. And as long as it keeps it in the hands of the people, we will keep the pressure on until we get these things changed in courts, you know?
Absolutely. And that's where we're heading.
We've been doing fighting this fight for more than 5 decades. So, you know, we're not rolling over to their concept of non-legalization, which they're trying to hijack the word legalization and turn it into something it isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, on that note, Paul, our time has come to an end, and I'm going to have to say thank you very much for coming on my show. We'll have to have you back again after Hemp Fest so you can fill us in on how that went. And it's just been terrific. We just kind of whipped right past us. Again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, Haley Rose Foundation, and Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana. Prairie Harvest Cup is coming up here in Saskatoon in October. Karma Cup is next week. And stay tuned for the Pottawa this afternoon on Lifestyle Radio. And thanks to my producer, Al Rapp. You all have a great week now. Bye.
Thank you all.
Man, have you been to Cannabis yet? Cannabis, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck, Crop King, and wholesaler Nexus. Cannabis. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Cannabis can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Cannabis. Have your say without saying a word. Cannabis.ca.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.